Hi, my name is Sam Stewart, and I'm here to talk about my dissertation and how it relates to other historiography in the scholarship on the Northwest Indian Wars. Now, 5 of the scholars that I chose and their works that are relatable to mine stem from their research into the logistics of Anthony Wayne's Legion and the work that they did in the Old Northwest. Now, the first work that's relatable is from a man, William Bergman, whose dissertation is entitled Commerce in Arms. He completed this in 2005, and his main argument concerns supply lines and trade systems that were used by the Native Americans and their allies. So the Native Americans, the French, and the British had created several supply lines throughout the Ohio to help move arms, food, and other supplies that the natives needed and that the French and or British were purchasing. Now, he focused on the U.S. gaining control of these supply lines was a major part of their state building effort to build and expand America. Now, a second gentleman, his name is Alan Gaff, and his monograph titled Bayonets in the Wilderness was published in 2004. And his work is mainly about Wayne's organization and logistical reforms, these same reforms that Bergman wrote about and these other historians that I'll be discussing. It also involved British support of Native Americans through these supply lines and how Wayne was influential in taking advantage of these supply lines to become victorious ultimately in the Battle of Fallen Timbers. Now, the third gentleman, John Grenier, his work was published in 2005. It's entitled The First Way of War, and it's mainly about general war strategy of frontier battles and about the building of a standing army. Now, Wayne's targeted the supply lines of the American Indians and the British to ultimately defeat the Indian resistance in the Northwest. A fourth gentleman, Daniel Brismer, his work, Evolution of Military Strategy, was a dissertation he completed in 2015, and he argued that the purpose of the U.S. war was less about controlling native resistance and more about destroying the economy that was in the Old Northwest. This economy is related to these supply lines that the natives and the British both took advantage of and that Wayne knew and used against them in order to project American state building. The last one that we'll talk about in this video is William Hodgland's work, a monograph completed in 2017 titled Autumn of the Black Snake. And he argues that the war was fought to increase federal authority and to create a federal standing army, which was a political controversy at the time, seeing as the Republic was in its early stages and many citizens and representatives were concerned about a standing army and its implications on the society. So how will my dissertation confirm, correct, or expand the work of these in relation to these 5 other historians? Well, a lot of my work combines all of the things that they've talked about, mainly the logistical reforms, but not just what did Wayne do to win, but how was Wayne able to maintain his force in the Old Northwest. There were 2 prior campaigns to his, St. Clair and Harmer, both generals who took forces into the Old Northwest to combat the Indian Confederacy, and a problem that they had was sustainability. And so Wayne's logistical reforms of creating forts, a fort network that started in Fort Washington, modern-day Cincinnati, Ohio, and all the way moving north up to Fort Defiance, closest to the final battle, the Battle of Fallen Timbers. How did that fort-to-fort network that he created, how was he able to sustain his men and prolong victories, and any small minor victories that he had, how were those able to build to create the ultimate victory that he had in the Old Northwest? Now, how does my dissertation pave new ways for historians to conduct research? Well, my dissertation also includes some public memory type history and forts like the one we're in today. This is Fort St. Clair, where we're in. It's one of the forts in the chain of forts that were created during the Northwest Indian Wars, and part of the larger corridor of logistical forts and supply lines that Wayne took advantage of. What historians could research is what's left here today in 2026 of these forts, and how has that impacted societies that were built up around these forts, which is a relation to state building that some historians have discussed. So those are just a few things to discuss about my dissertation. I thank you for your time, and have a good night.